Hello, I am the Super Commish. Thanks for joining me. I have never made a YouTube video before, but I wanted to try in hopes of bringing my blog to life. So let's jump right in and discuss fantasy baseball. The first question to answer is, why should you listen to the Super Commish? My fantasy resume should explain. I invented the solitaire version of fantasy baseball as a kid. I would sit at the kitchen table and spread out my baseball cards. Once everything was properly arranged, I would begin my solitaire fantasy drafts and compare the final teams based on the stats on the back of the cards. It was a memorable pastime from my childhood. However, despite my enthusiasm for fantasy sports, I did not officially start playing fantasy baseball until 2009. It took me a really long time to get over the fact that the steroid era, destroyed the value of my generation's baseball cards. I have now played in 7 total leagues, and all were rotisserie style. I came in 4th place my first year, but I have finished in 1st or 2nd in every league since. I currently have 3 championships, accompanied by 3 silver medals. And my final qualification is based upon the endorsement of my fantasy team, the Super Chickens. As you can see on this autograph photo, the San Diego Chicken himself has stated the Super Commish is the manager of the Super Chickens, and he rocks. Well, that is my introduction and my background information. Now it's time for the good stuff. Here are the Super Commish's top 5 fantasy baseball 2014 draft day tips. Number 1, go power hitters early. It is easier to get a good 190 plus strikeout pitcher than it is to get a 30 plus home run hitter in the later rounds of drafts this year. Batting averages are going down and strikeouts are going up. This trend is decreasing the supply of power hitters that can consistently maintain a good batting average while increasing the supply of high strikeout pitchers. This means above average power hitters are in scarce supply and therefore more valuable to a fantasy roster. Let's take a look at some possible draft day decisions to illustrate this point. You could have Justin Masterson or Mark Teixeira in the 18th round. Masterson is an opening day starter who averaged more than 1 strikeout per inning last year with a 3.45 ERA, while Teixeira was nursing a wrist injury all season last year. A.J. Burnett or Chris Carter in the 19th. Burnett is coming off of 2 stellar seasons in the National League, while Carter has a career batting average of .220. How about this one? Tim Lincecum or Ryan Howard in the 21st round. One of them better be awesome this year, and I'm betting on the freak. And finally, you can choose between Ubaldo Jimenez and Adam Dunn in the 23rd round. Jimenez would be the best pitcher in baseball if his ERA was the same as Adam Dunn's career batting average. So on draft day, just remember the supply of power hitters with above par batting averages is dropping like Willie Mays Hayes after a pop-out. Aw, come on! I know I'm not the only person that has thought about how awesome it would be if Billy Hamilton did 20 push-ups on home plate after popping out on opening day. Number 2, feel free to wait on pitching. There is no doubt that pitching has taken over baseball, and fantasy owners should recognize the opportunity that is being presented to them this year. Since pitching has improved for many seasons now, fantasy experts argue whether it is better to get a fantasy ace early or simply wait until the later rounds to fill a pitching staff. That argument could have gone either way over the past seasons, but this year the pitching pool has never been deeper because of the awesome rookie class that came up to the majors last year. Here, let me show you something. Take a look at these tables as they are comparing the 2013 Fantasy Aces to the 2013 Super Rookies. The rookies had a better overall record and their ERA was over a run lower than the Fantasy Aces. The rookies would have had more strikeouts if they could have pitched as many innings as the Aces. 4 of these rookies are being drafted after the 10th round, and that represents great value. Fantasy owners should also note that this table does not include Michael Wacha, Garrett Cole, Zach Wheeler, or Chris Archer. Now, just to prove the point that the 2013 rookie class really is a special group, take a look at these tables comparing the stats of the top 5 fantasy rookie pitchers from the last 3 years. All 3 rookie classes have very similar records, but the 2013 rookies have way more strikeouts, minus the Yu Darvish factor, and their ERA was by far the best. Baseball was introduced to a special group of rookie pitchers last year, and fantasy owners should take advantage of this fact and feel free to wait on pitching. If you're like me and always want to get a few fantasy aces on your team, 2014 is looking like a great opportunity to mix up your draft strategy. It's a good idea to shake things up on draft day in order to keep your opponents guessing about your draft priorities. With the improved depth of pitching, it is possible to go hitter heavy to start the draft and still end up with 5 opening day starters or 5 super rookies in your rotation. Number 3, gamble late on shortstop over second base. If you're planning on taking a middle infielder in the first 2 rounds, go for second base over shortstop. The reason? Cano and Pedroia are much safer picks than Tulo and Hanley. In the end, though, this decision really depends on which middle infielder you think best represents late round value. For instance, would you prefer Sterling Castro or Martin Prado in the 12th round? Both players have been proven fantasy assets. How about Andrelton Simmons or Jed Jerko in the 13th round? Both of these young players appear to be on the verge of having a breakout season. Then you got J.J. Hardy or Chase Utley in the 15th round. This one is a choice between 2 old reliable veterans. And finally, how about Xander Bogaerts or Jurickson Profar in the 17th round? And finally, we have a choice between the 2 very hyped prospects. So number 4, consider a superstar closer. The MLB is becoming a pitcher's paradise, and with so many starters racking up 200 plus strikeouts these days, because it's now cool to strike out, fantasy owners can gain the strikeout edge by finding a way to effectively draft 1 or perhaps 2 100 plus strikeout closers. I call this getting the K edge. And last, number 5, wait on a catcher. It's a cliche but true. Most fantasy owners simply don't want to be the first person in their draft to take a catcher, and that keeps the draft day value of catchers at a minimum. So now fantasy owners can take advantage of the depth at this position and feel no pressure to jump on a catcher in the early rounds of drafts this year. Alright, to sum up, number 1, go power hitters early. It's easier to get a good power pitcher later than it is to get a good power hitter later. And on that note, comes number 2, feel free to wait on pitching. Remember, the super rookies outplayed the top starters last year, and all those super rookies are going for great value this year. Number 3, gamble on a late shortstop instead of a late second baseman. Cano and Pedroia are much safer bets in the earlier rounds than Tulowitzki and Hanley Ramirez. Number 4, consider a superstar closer. Seems like a new trend. And again, that's what you got to do if you want to get the K edge. And number 5, wait on catchers. It's a deep enough position, and nobody wants to be the first player to take a catcher in their fantasy drafts. Well, that about wraps it up for my first ever YouTube fantasy advice show. If you want to see how far down the rabbit hole the Super Commish may go, then follow his journey on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks again for your time, and I hope you found this show both informative and interesting.